Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachanam pangam langyate girim yatkapathamam vande Shri Gurudinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam. Hare Krishna, thank you for joining. So we will resume our discussion of the Rudra Gita from Canto 4, Chapter 24, resuming verse 62. Kriyakalape ridameva yoginaha Shraddhanvitaha sadhu yajanti siddhyaye Bhutendriyantaha karanopalakshitam Vede chatantre chataiva kovidaha. My dear Lord, your universal form consists of all five elements: the senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, which is material, and the Paramatma, your partial expansion, who is the director of everything. Yogis other than the devotees, namely the Karma Yogi and Jnana Yogi, worship you by the respective actions in the respective positions. It is stated both in the Vedas and in the Shastras that are corollaries of the Vedas, and indeed everywhere, that it is only you who are to be worshipped. This is the expert version of all the Vedas. So, as per Srila Prabhupada, in this verse, Lord Shiva is glorifying two other forms of the Lord that are manifest in the universe. So, if you remember, in the earlier part of the Gita, Lord Shiva had finished glorifying the personal form of the Lord, and now he is talking about the form of the Lord that is perceived in material nature. So here he is speaking about the Virat Roop and the Paramatma form. So the Virat Roop is the manifestation of the matter in the Lord, and the Paramatma is the manifestation of the Lord in the matter. Right? So Krishna says, I'm outside and inside, and one way of understanding it is that as the Virat Roop, he is outside everything, and as the Paramatma, he is inside everything. Vishwanath Chakravarti considers this to be a little different, and considers that Lord Shiva is only describing the Paramatma form. So he says that the Karam Yogi and Astang Yogis worship the first Purusha, the Antaryami of all living beings. And what is this form? It is known to have a body, senses, and Antakaran under his control. He has a form controlling these elements. Only those who are learned amongst the karmis and yogis realize this form and not the others. So remember, Paramatma, each of the Purusha Avatar is also Paramatma. The Karnodaksha Vishnu is the Paramatma for the entire material creation. Garbhodaksha Vishnu is the Paramatma for a particular universe. And Shodasha Vishnu is the Paramatma for each and every jiva living within that universe. So as for Vishnu Chakravarti, this is describing the first Purusha, which is essentially Karnodaksha Vishnu, which is the Paramatma for all living beings. In the last line, it is stated that both in the Vedas and in the Shastras that are corollaries to the Vedas. So the Shastras that are corollaries to the Vedas are the supporting literatures. They are the Puranas, they are the tantras, they are the pancharatrikas. So these are all the corollaries to the Vedas. Corollaries in the sense that they support the conclusion of the Vedas and expand on it. So the last line of the verse states that both in the Vedas and in the corollaries, it is only you who are worshipped. And Srila Prabhupada essentially concentrates on this line in his purport. So he says that everybody should worship only Krishna. Gives the reference to 310, Akama Sarva Kamo, Moksha Kamo. So whether the person is a karmi, a jnani, a sthang yogi, or a bhakta, they should only worship Krishna. And then he gives reference of Vishnu Purana, where it says that Varnashrama Charatvata Purushena Paraha Puman Vishnu Aradhyate Pantha Nanya Tattosh Karanam. Here it is clearly mentioned that the karmi, jnani, or yogi, in fact, everyone worships Lord Vishnu, if he is actually expert in the knowledge of the Vedas and the Tantras. So even if one performs yajnas, as stated here, Kriya, it says Kriya Kalapa, you should remember that the demigods are but the agents of the Supreme Lord. So even if they are performing Karam Kanda yajnas to the Devas, then they should remember that the Devas are but agents of the Lord. And Prabhupada quotes 923, that whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods or son of Kunti is really meant for me, but it is offered without true understanding. So Lord Shiva states that those who know this, know what? That the only worshipable entity is Krishna, they are considered to be in knowledge. Prabhupada says that the word Kovida is very significant, for it indicates the devotees of the Lord. Only the devotee of the Lord know perfectly that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is all pervading. So the conclusion is that the Lord is one and he is expanded in everything. This is understood by the Vedic version, Sarvam Kalvedam Brahma. One who knows this concentrates all his energy into worshipping Lord Vishnu. Okay. So this is a principle that is the devotees are very, very familiar with. That Krishna is the root of all incarnations. Krishna is the source of the demigods. And one should worship Krishna, or either one should worship his expansions with the understanding that they're based on Krishna, they're manifestations of Krishna, or they're empowered by Krishna. Okay, moving on to verse 63. Tvamekadayah purusha sapta shaktis taya rajah sattva tamo vividyate mahanaham kham marudagnivardharaha surarasya bhuta ganaidam yataha. My dear Lord, you are the only Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. Before the creation of this material world, your material energy remains in a dormant condition. When your material energy is agitated, the three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, act. And as a result, the total material energy, egotism, ether, air, fire, water, earth, and all the various demigods and saintly persons become manifest. Thus, the material world is created. So this verse talks about the creation of the entire material world. And the Lord is worshipped as Adya Purusha. Adya Purusha is Mahavishnu in this verse. So Mahavishnu is also considered to be the Paramatma of Prakriti. So Prakriti is the external energy of Krishna. And the Paramatma, the Lord accompanying Prakriti, is considered to be Mahavishnu. So as I mentioned, that all the Purusharthas are considered to be Paramatmas of different abstractions of existence. So the Lord is glorified as you possess the sleeping energy, Maya. Afterwards, by the awakened energy, the gunas appear separate from you. From the gunas arise Mahatattva and other elements. So that's the process of material creation. So Prabhupada makes this point that this verse, which is talking about creation, it defeats the notion of oneness that is propounded by the impersonalists. That spirit and matter are created by the Lord, and under its influence, the various conditioning happens. So the material miseries are not by the desire of the Lord, but by the desire of the jivas. For instance, a child may be fascinated by his mother cooking. And then he insists that I also need to cook, I also need to cook. And the mother obviously doesn't won't allow the child to cook on the real kitchen. So she'll give him or her a play kitchen. So there will be a small stuff, there will be some utensils, and the child will be happy there. He will imitate his mother, cook and try to make stuff. His mother is making out of real stuff, he's making out of fake stuff. But what he makes over there is not going to satisfy his hunger. So he may play in the kitchen, but then he will go to his mother and say, I'm hungry, give me some real food. And then the mother gives the real food which satisfies the child's hunger. So it's a very similar situation for the conditioned soul. That in the spiritual world, they see Krishna occupying a predominant position, and they want to occupy that position. And then Krishna says that you're not qualified to occupy that position. No one is, only Krishna is. But then he creates a play world. And the jiva, they pretends to be Krishna, doing whatever Krishna is doing, trying to be the enjoyer and the controller. But there is no real food that is created in the play kitchen. So there is no real satisfaction to the hunger. Ultimately, hunger is only there when one goes back to Krishna's kitchen. So the jivas come to the material world to cook, but unfortunately, they get cooked. And eventually, when they realize, then they express the desire to go back to Krishna. So the point in this verse is that Krishna exists before and after the material creation. And this is an important point from a philosophical perspective, because it gives the independence of the material creation of Krishna on material creation. The Mayavadis say that Krishna is a product of the material world. Or other philosophies will say that the existence of the God is predicated on sometimes they say it's predicated on the jivas. If there is no jiva, then who will worship God? So then God ceases to exist. Right? That's one philosophy. But it seems like a minor point, but it is actually a significant point in Vaishnava theology about the fact that the material world is dependent on Krishna, and even for that matter, the spiritual world is dependent on Krishna. But Krishna is not dependent on either the material or the spiritual world. So Srila Prabhupada gives 5 references in the purport to support this. He quotes from Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Paramakrishna. He quotes the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadiyasya Yata. Then he quotes Bhagavad Gita, Chatushloki 10.8, Aham Sabasya Prabhu. Then he quotes the Bhagavatam Chatushloki 2.9.33, Aham Evagare, Aham Evasma Vivagare. I was existing in the beginning, before the creation. And he even quotes Sripad Shankaracharya's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, where Shankaracharya says, Narayana Paro Vyaktat, that Narayana is transcendental to the creation. So Lord Shiva, through these verses, because this prayer is being recited by a materially embodied soul, he is not only talking about Krishna in the spiritual world, he is also talking about Krishna's relationship to the material world, so that they can see Krishna clearly around them and understand their dependence on Krishna. If one has turned their back on Krishna, Krishna has still not turned their back on them. Krishna never turns their back. Krishna continues to support them. And that's an important point that should be understood to get a sense of the depth of compassion and mercy of Krishna. Moving on to verse 64. Shrishtam swasaktayedam anupravavishtas chaturvidham puram atmam shakena atho vidustam purusham santam anta bhankte rishikir madhu saragam yaha. My dear Lord, after creating by your own potencies, you enter within the creation in 4 kinds of forms. Being within the hearts of the living entities, you know them and know how they are enjoying their senses. The so-called happiness of this material creation is exactly like the bee's enjoyment of honey after it has been collected in the honey comb. So previous verse talked about how Krishna or the Purushattas, they create the universe. This verse talks about how after creating the universe, they enter into it. So it says the Lord is entering within the 4 types of living entities and accompanies each one of them in the capacity of the Paramatma, the Anumantana Upadeshtata. Prabhupada says that the 4 types of living entities are those that are born by the way of embryo. They are the Jarayuja. So Ja means born. Then some are born by the way of eggs. This is Andaja. There are some that are born by perspiration. This is Svedaja. And some, like the trees, are born by the seeds. This is Udbija. So regardless of how these living entities appear, they are all busy in the pursuit of sense enjoyment. So all the living entities come in this 4 categories. So example of Jarayuja, embryo, is the human beings. Example of Andaja, births. Then example of Svedaja, perspiration, is the microorganisms that appear in the perspiration. Example of the seeds are the plants. And this is also referred later in the Bhagavatam 12th canto, chapter 9, verse 13. So, since the cosmic manifestation is inert, the Lord, he enters into it along with his amshas. So the amshas here are the jivas. and that's how the cosmic manifestation is animated. So there are 8.5 million species of the conditioned living entity, but they all have only one engagement, which is the desire for sense gratification. And they all have the same result, that they are unable to enjoy it. So they are all desiring sense gratification, but they are all unable to derive any lasting happiness out of it. So Lord Shiva explains this with the analogy of the honeybees. That the bees work very hard to collect honey, and then they store it in the honeycombs. So when the time comes to enjoy the honey, then the bees are bitten by other bees. So even though they have worked hard, it's their honey, but they're still not able to enjoy it because there are others who are attempting to take away their hard work, just like they are attempting to take the hard work of others. So that is the nature of conditioned souls, that they work hard to collect funds, but when it comes to enjoy it, then they are stung either by old age, by diseases, by relatives, by thieves, by enemies, by their own insecurities. So they are never able to enjoy it. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that in spite of being bitten by other bees, the bees are unable to give up their attempts to collect the honey to enjoy. So this is like an itch. So sometimes there is an itch on the skin that one is forced to scratch. And even as one is scratching it, one can see that the itch is getting worse. It becomes reddened, inflamed, sometimes it bleeds. But the power of itch is so strong that one still keeps scratching it, and it keeps getting worse and worse. So what is the best way to treat an itch? The doctor says that don't worry about it. Just tolerate. Similarly, that is the recommendation for the jivas. That the desire for sense gratification is very strong. And even though the jiva has experience that every time they try to engage in sense gratification, it results in unhappiness. They're still driven to do it because of their conditioned nature. But Krishna says that best thing is to tolerate it. That don't try to run after the sense objects. And then automatically the itch will be cured. Another point that is made is that in the previous verse, it was mentioned that Krishna enters into the universe as the super soul. In this verse, it is mentioned that the jivas are entering into actually in this verse, mentioned both. Jiva and Krishna, they both enter into the material universe to animate. So one should not misunderstand that even though they may both be addressed as Purushas, one should not misunderstand that they are the same. One is worshipable as Paramatma, and the other is the Jiva. So one is worshipable and the other is not. One is infinite, the other is minute. Prabhupada says the conclusion is that both the personality of Godhead and the Jivas enter into the material world. However, the personality or the Supreme Personality, however the Paramatma or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable, because he has arranged for the happiness of the living entities in the material world. Because it is the material world, however, no one can enjoy any kinds of happiness without inebriety. Material enjoyment means inebriety, whereas spiritual, pure enjoyment is under the protection of the Lord. Okay, so let's move on to the next verse. Verse 65. Saisha lokanati chandavego vikarshashitvam khalokalayana bhutani bhuteiranumeya tattvo ganavalirvayu iva vishayaha. My dear Lord, your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced, but one can guess by seeing the activities of the world that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. The force of time is very strong, and everything that is being destroyed by, and everything is being destroyed by something else. Just as one animal is being eaten by another animal. Time scatters everything, exactly as the wind scatters clouds in the sky. So previously, Lord Shiva was glorifying Krishna as the creator and the maintainer of the universe. Right? He is Mahavishnu, is the creator, as Paramatma, he comes and maintains. Now in two verses, 65 and 66, he will worship Krishna as the destroyer in the form of time. So in the form of time, the Lord drags the non-devotees jivas along with all their coverings. He will agitate the place of enjoyment. He will cause one to destroy the others. This is all by the influence of the Lord in the form of time. So this statement, just as one animal is being eaten by another animal, in the first canto, 13th chapter, Narad Muni makes the same statement to Yudhishthira when Yudhishthira is concerned that Dhritarashtra has gone and is dead, and he speaks this verse, Jiva Jivasya Jivanam, that one living entity is food for another. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that Mrityu Sarva Haraschaham, that as death, I devour everything. So, for those who can see Krishna's hand in creation, they are attached to that particular form of Krishna. And then there are those who see Krishna's hand in maintenance. But then there are those who have difficulty seeing Krishna's hand in either creation or maintenance. So for them, Lord Shiva is talking about Krishna's hand in destruction. Since the influence of time is all pervasive, everyone experiences it in one form or other. Everyone has experienced either or not either, but simultaneously, directly and vicariously. They see people allow themselves, around themselves getting old, and they become old themselves. They see death around them, and they will eventually experience their own death. So more than creation and maintenance, destruction is the manifest characteristic of the material universe. So Lord Shiva is presenting this as a way to relate to Krishna in his aspect of time. So Prabhupada talks about the analogy that Prabhupada says that we can see the clouds scattered by the wind, although we cannot see the wind. But the fact that the clouds are being scattered means that there is wind. So similarly, we may not be able to see the Lord, but the fact that there is destruction all along us means that he is present through his influence. Prabhupada says the destructive process is going on fiercely under the control of the Lord, but the atheist cannot see it. So time in a way is very relative. Even though time is considered to be one of the absolute attributes, but in reality, it is very, very relative. That if somebody is doing something that they really like, then time travels very quickly. If a devotee is sitting and you're listening to Krishna Katha, then the whole evening will pass by very quickly. But a person who is not attracted to Krishna, for them the evening will be a very long evening. We see that sometimes in the temple when sannyasis come and there's a Bhagavad Saptah going on, or they're giving classes. And then there are some people, they're just sitting completely absorbed, completely unaware of time. And there are other people, they're fidgeting, constantly checking their watch. They cross and uncross their legs, they go out, come back in. So it's the same time that is passing for both of them. But for one, it's like a blink of an eye. And for another, it's like a million years. There is this the understanding of time that I'm not sure what the source of it, if it is a Puranic story or if it is just a fable, but I have heard it sufficiently from different devotees. So I'm thinking there is some scriptural origin to it. But I'm sure you have also heard it that there was a sadhu who was once traveling, and a young prince approaches him and asks for a benediction. And the sadhu says, "May you live forever." And the prince is happy and goes away. Then a brahmachari comes and gives him obeisances, and the sadhu says, "May you die now." And the brahmachari gives obeisances and goes away. And then there is a butcher who comes and asks for blessings, and the sadhu says that, "May you neither live nor die." And then finally a devotee comes, and the sadhu says, "May you live or may you die." So then the sadhu's student or assistant, he's puzzled. He says, "Why are you giving different benedictions to different people?" And the sadhu explains that the prince is right now enjoying his life of sense pleasure. But in doing so, he is hunting and killing many animals for sport. So when he dies, they will devour his body and he will suffer a lot. So that's why I have said, "May you live forever," because that inevitable ending is waiting for you. So the students say, "I understand. What about the brahmachari?" And he said, "The brahmachari right now is pure and sinless. But later on, when he enters into the grahastha ashram, his future is uncertain. He will fall into the worldly ways. So if he dies now, he will certainly be promoted to higher worlds. So which is why I told him, may you die now." And what about the butcher? He says the butcher is leading an extremely sinful life. If he dies, he will suffer from hellish conditions. If he lives, he will continue to sin even more, which is why I blessed him that may you neither live nor die, because in both cases there is suffering. And I said, what about the devotee? So for a devotee, that doesn't make a difference. Either way, they will be engaged in the service of the Lord. So that is why I said, may you live or may you die. It makes no difference. So considering the fact that death is synonymous to time, this shows that how time is experienced differently by different people. And considering that time is a representation of Krishna, this shows that how Krishna is experienced differently by different people, which is why Lord Shiva is talking about Krishna as the creator, as the maintainer, as the destroyer, so that one way or the other, one develops some attachment to Krishna. Okay. We'll do 2 more verses, and after that we'll pause for any discussion. Pramattam muche iti kritya chintaya pravralobam vishayeshu lalsam tvam apamataha sahasabhi padyase shulle lihano hiriva mukantakaha. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things, and they're always busy with the desire to do this or that. This is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity. But your Lordship is always alert, and in due course of time, you strike him, just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows him. So this is again Krishna in the form of death or time. 2 points are made in this verse, that if time is so pervasive as the energy of Krishna, then the question is that why are people not aware of it? And Lord Shiva says, this is because of them being blinded by greed and extensive desire. The second point is that for such persons, the Lord takes the form of a cruel and a relentless predator. So the analogy of the snake and the mouse is given, that the mouse is busy with its daily affairs, and unknown to him, there is a snake that is vigilantly stalking him. And at the appropriate time, the snake will strike and swallow the mouse. So that snake is the time factor. And the mouse is the jiva that is blinded by greed and desire. So Srila Prabhupada describes, so Lord Shiva calls this person as Pramattam. Pramattam means mad. And Srila Prabhupada says that such a person is described in the Bhagavad Gita in 327, Prakriti Kriyamanani, Gunakarmani Sarvasha, Ahankar Vimudatma, Karta Aham iti manyate. Right? Vimudha means foolish, Vimudha means completely foolish. So they think that they are the doers, while actually everything is being done by Prakriti, by the modes of material nature. And not only do this, they're mad because they don't see this, they're also mad because they do not learn from history. Prabhupada says that there are so many aristocratic families that were created by people in their extreme madness. But we can see that in the course of time, those families and empires have all been destroyed. Still, foolish atheists do not accept the supreme authority of the Lord. Such foolish persons unnecessarily concoct their own duties without referring to the supreme authority of the Lord. The Prabhupada says, then what is the right way to live? He gives the peace formula, Bhoktaram Yagatapasama, Sarvalokma Ishwara. That one should continue to do whatever they're doing, but with the understanding that Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer. Next verse, and then we'll pause. Karstvarpadabjam vihati pandito yaste vamana vyayamana ketana vishankaya smad gururarchate smaya vino papaptim manavas chaturdasha. My dear Lord, any learned person knows that unless he worships you, his entire life is spoiled. Knowing this, how could he give up worshipping your lotus feet? Even our father and spiritual master, Lord Brahma, unhesitatingly worshipped you, and the 14 Manus followed in his footsteps. So previous two verses spoke about the pramattam, about the person who's insane, mad person. This verse speaks about pandita, the learned person. And what is the difference between the two? So the pramatta was described as pravrit lobham, as one who has intense greed, and vishayeshu lalasam, that he has, lalasam means strong desire for vishayeshu, for material enjoyment. Now contrast that with the pandit who is vyayamana ketana. So vyayamana ketana means that the person knows that the body is perishable and tvat padasha, and therefore worships the lotus feet of the Lord. Now, in this verse, we also see Lord Shiva bringing forth the importance of parampara. So Lord Shiva says, he talks about that even our father and spiritual master, Lord Brahma, unhesitatingly worshipped you. And then the 14 Manus, so he's talking about Guru and Parampara. So the conclusion of the Vedic scriptures are manifested by the actions and the realizations of the exalted personalities in the disciplic succession. And Lord Shiva is demonstrating this by personal example. So some more discussion of the difference between a pramattam and pandita. So two aspects of the differences are brought forth in this set of verses. One is the awareness of the relationship with the material and the spiritual. So the pramattam ignores the fact that everything material is temporary, while the pandita is always aware of the fact that material means perishable. Then secondly, the pramattam ignores the existence of Krishna, and the pandita makes the worship of Krishna the focus of his life. So a materialist lives his life with material attachment and spiritual detachment. And a spiritualist lives his life with material detachment and spiritual attachment. And Lord Shiva is citing the example of previous great personalities to confirm this point. The Lord Brahma, the four Kumars, the Manus, these are all exalted personalities that are Panditas, that have demonstrated this two understandings, the nature of the material and the nature of the spiritual. Prabhupada says that such a Pandita is very rare. He quotes 719 Bhavanam Jamanamante. Actually, this is a verse that Prabhupada will quote at least 3 more times as he goes through this chapter, talking about how rare is a person who takes to or who develops an understanding of the real position of Krishna. So what are some of the qualities of the Pandita? So in the purport, Prabhupada quotes from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He does not say that it's from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but essentially the same verse is also quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, 2 verses, in Madhya Lila 18-19. Prabhupada gives the 9 characteristics of a devotee who has attained the stage of Bhava Bhakti. So what are the stages? That the person is Shanti. Shanti means that he is reserved and he is perseverant. Perseverant means that he perseveres, he is tenacious in his spiritual pursuit. That is one. Second is that he is avyartha kalatvam. He never wastes any time. Third is virakti, that he is detached from material attachment. Fourth is man shunyata. Man shunyata is no desires for material respect. Then asha bandha. Asha bandha means that the person is confident that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him. So asha is aspiration. He's confident that Krishna will bestow his mercy. Then he is samutkatha, sankantha. Samutkantha means that always eager to serve the Lord faithfully. 7th is nam gane sada ruchi, that always eager to glorify the Lord by chanting and hearing. 8th is asaktistat gunakhyane, that is eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. And the 9th is pritistat vasati sthale, that is attached to those places where the Lord had his pastimes. So these are the 9 qualities as per Rupa Goswami of one who has reached the stage of Bhava Bhakti. And Prabhupada said the practical way of cultivating this quality is by first developing humility and tolerance. Prabhupada quotes the 3rd verse of the Shashtakam. So in the purport, he says that the atheists are always prepared to harass a devotee. Therefore, Mahaprabhu suggests that one be very tolerant of these people. Nonetheless, one has to continue chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and preaching the chanting of this mantra, because such preaching and chanting constitute the perfection of life. One should chant and preach about the urgency of making his life perfect in all respects. One should thus engage in the devotional service of the Lord and follow in the footsteps of previous acharyas, beginning with Lord Brahma and others. Okay, so let me pause here and see if we have any discussion. Okay, if not, then we can...
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
About the different person that's supposed to die, whether they should live or die. I think it's in the Mukundamala Stotram, where King Krashakar. I've heard a Prabhupada class on that, and when he was mentioning about that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. I'll check it out. I was always curious. I've heard this at many places. I was always curious whether it has a scriptural origin or it's just like a folklore or a parable. So thank you for pointing that out.
Krishna, just a comment on the same point. I have heard this being told directly by Srila Prabhupada. It was 1967 in his Vyas Puja. Not Vyas Puja, it was the disappearance anniversary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he spoke exactly like you said about the brahmachari, the prince, the brahmachari, the butcher, and the devotee. And he was making reference to the disappearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that the pure devotee, whether he dies or lives, he continues to engage in devotional service. And in that sense, there's no need for lamentation, so to speak, that his passing, right, is after he passes, he is directly under the care of the Supreme Lord Krishna, and he serves Krishna according to his desire. So I remember very clearly that when Prabhupada was speaking on this particular disappearance anniversary, Prabhupada broke down. There was one time that he broke down. And that was the first time I heard it. Maybe it's described in other places, like Prabhu was saying in the Mukundamala Stotra. One other point I'd like to make is the very powerful purpose, that Prabhupada is writing to these verses here, especially verse number 65, the last few lines of the purport. I thought these purports are very, very deep. Just like the last two lines where he said, we can see the clouds scattered by the wind, although we cannot see how this is being done because it is not possible to see the wind. Similarly, although we do not directly see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can see that he controls the process of destruction. And then the last line, the destructive process is going on fiercely under the control of the Lord, but the atheist cannot see it. I thought those are very, very deep meaning, being brought out. And in these purports, it's like very, very, awakening. It awakens, the reality of life in the material world. Certainly, it's practically, I'm tempted to say that over the last couple weeks, the 3-4 weeks, some very, very senior devotees, they just left their bodies. And in the Guyana Yatra, and we were all so devastated. And you read these purports, you feel comforted, and there's a lot of solace, from the philosophy in general, but some of these purports, are very, very reassuring. Anyway, those are some little comments I'd like to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. You're right, Prabhupada's comments, purports. If one reads them, they force one, the Prabhupada forces one to think very deeply. And it's interesting that generally Krishna consciousness is presented as happiness and pleasure. But there are times when Prabhupada uses that analogy of a cat and a kitten. So when a cat catches a rat, the mouth is death. And when a cat catches a kitten, the mouth is protection. And the two aspects of Krishna for devotee and non-devotee. So it increases the resolve to be the kitten and not the rat.
Yeah. And another wonderful example I've heard is just like I travel a few times in India. Most of you belongs to India, but I remember, I sometimes travel. I travel from Tirupati, Vedam, to another city, and you're in the train for 30, 40 hours, and the train would stop at certain station. And because I'm a stranger to India, I really feel lost if I'm just being put out of this train. I know no one, and it's very, very frightening. And then I heard one devotee give an analogy. There was that brings deep realization. Also, he says that when a devotee passes away, and when someone who is a non-devotee passes away, just like you give the example of the cat, the kitten and the mouse in the jaws of the cat. He said that just like traveling in a night train, you don't know when a non-devotee passes away, you don't know your destination. You have no control, and you have no choice where you're going. You're just, in oblivion. You just don't know that, and that is what it means. But he said just like you're going in a train, and you know that when you come off, at some destination, someone is waiting for you there, with a garland to garland you and to welcome you. It brings a different feeling. So he said for a devotee passing away, it's like that. You're just like change of body, but you know that you're going to be received on the other side by devotees and those were near and dear to you, Krishna, and it brings a lot of solace. Just like the example you give with the mouse. The mouse, it's like horror story. It's just horror. It's death, but it's tender loving care when the kitten is in the mouth of the cat. So again, if we are in Krishna consciousness and we study the philosophy, and it brings so much solace and comfort to us in the midst of the whole material world, which is Dukhalyam Ashashvatam, full of misery. Patam yadvi patam natesham. Every step there is danger. Anyway, thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you for sharing, Prabhu. Anyone else? Any thoughts?
Yeah, one minor thing, Prabhu, just a sharing. This is on this 67th verse. When we had this contrast with the Pandit Viyamana Kirtana. The person who knows the body is perishable, kind of a conscious. So I would like to give some kind of an experience. Within the devotee, I know one of the devotee, he's so elevated. Oh, this body is perishable. But my question is, I still couldn't understand his conscious. He just neglects anything like a walk or any other to take care of the body. At the same time, I do see that, oh, this is the gift of the Lord, and we need to make use of this body as a towards the service of the Lord. How do I connect to his thought process? Like, he knows it is perishable, but he doesn't even take care of anything. It's not only walk, like completely neglectful of the body.
Difficult for me to comment about devotee not knowing.
Yeah.
Not
You
knowing.
see, that's what I said. It is difficult. Sorry
Yeah,
to ask this question. Yeah.
But in general, our Srila Prabhupada set a good example, right? He took very good care of his body.
Yeah.
When Prabhupada was, when he had a partial stroke in New York, then the doctor in New York, he said, the old man prays too much. He needs to go out and get some exercise. He should walk. Prabhupada took that as an instruction. Every day without fail, he walked. Summer, winter, you know. One day Prabhupada all dressed up and it was snowing outside. And one of the disciples said that, Prabhupada, it's really miserable outside. We should not go. Prabhupada said, you are miserable. Let's go. And then he went out. And then other things also. He would get a massage and he would consult with an Ayurved whenever necessary. So he was looking upon his body as something by which he was serving Krishna. And in that way, he was taking good care. Just like you could take good care of your Aarti paraphernalia, your altar, your books, because they're all your ways to serve Krishna. That's the way the devotee takes care of the body. And there are devotees who are so exalted that if they don't take care of the body, Krishna takes care of the body. And they're at a different level. And so, but for most of us sadhakas, following the footsteps of Prabhupada, we should take good care of the body so that we can continue to serve Krishna and his devotees. And we, the fine line, of course, is between taking good care of the body and being obsessed by the body. So it's good to take care of the body and keep it healthy and clean in the service of Krishna. Not good to become obsessed by it. That the beauty of the body or how it appears to the opposite sex, that's becoming obsessed with the body. So that distinction, and devotees are generally able to make that distinction fairly easily. There's not much, generally speaking, there is not much confusion over there.
Thank you. One other question. It's a small thing. We did discuss, this is on the fifth quality out of those 9 qualities about the Asha Bandha, where the confident, a devotee will be confident that Krishna will bestow mercy on him. But at the same time, to contrast, we do talk about being humble, thinking that he is nothing, he is full of faults. That is also a quality. How do you reconcile that?
So Lord Brahma in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, there's a famous verse, Tatyanukampam Susamekshamano.
Yeah.
Right. And that gives the mood of a devotee nicely, that all the trials and tribulations that are coming, the devotee, he patiently tolerates it while waiting for the mercy of the Lord. So not that he's presumptuous that Krishna should take care of all my difficulties. That Krishna should make sure that I am not in any difficulty. Right? That's being the opposite of humble. That's being proud. That Krishna is my janitor, and I'm going to use him to clean up all the dirt around me. But while the person is tolerating all these difficulties, the person is patiently waiting for the mercy of Krishna. Right? For such a person, Lord Brahma says that it becomes the what's the word that he uses? It becomes his birthright to get the mercy of Krishna. So birthright means nobody can take it. You're born as soon as you're born of the parents, nobody can take that away. It's your birthright. Many other things might get taken away, your wealth or your health. But the fact that you are the child of your parents, that's your birthright. That will never get taken away. So the devotee is expecting the mercy of Krishna. And there's a difference between expecting the interference of Krishna or Krishna taking care of doing things and mercy of Krishna. So the first is on my terms, the second is on Krishna's terms. Right? If I expect that Krishna should do X, Y, Z, that is on my terms. But if I say that I'm expecting the mercy of Krishna, whichever way that mercy manifests, that is on Krishna terms. Whether it manifests tomorrow or it manifests after 100 lifetimes, the devotee is patiently waiting but confident that it will appear.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a nice point. That verse is a very nice verse. Vishwanath Chakravarti writes, he writes a beautiful purport to it. Maybe, well, we won't reach this and this, but maybe sometime we'll discuss this. Once there's a Prabhupada disciple who visited us in the temple. So this verse is 10:14:8, I believe, right? 8 or so he was he's a Prabhupada disciple, and he said we actually have a club called Tatte Nukampam Club, where the devotees meet and they're trying to cultivate that mood of developing the dependence on the mercy of Krishna. And he was making that distinction very strongly, that depending on mercy is different from depending on the person. Like if I depend on you, then I'm like, Prem Kishore Prabhu, I need you to help me over here. I need you to take care of this. That's me depending on you. If I depend on your mercy, then whatever you do, whenever you do, however you do it, that is fine by me. It's completely up to you, right? So the focus changes from me depending on you, from me just being confident that you will give me whatever you feel is best for me at whatever time you feel is right for me. So the whole mood changes by just putting that one word in that verse.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no other thoughts? We can move on to verse 68. Atha tvam brahman paramatman vipaschitam vishwam rudra bhayadvastam akutaschi bhayagatihi. My dear Lord, all actually learned persons know you as the Supreme Brahman and the Super Soul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything, for the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. So this is the last verse of the prayer. And this verse is essentially a summary. So not the summary of the entire prayer, but the summary of the last section of the prayer, because Lord Rudra had worshipped Krishna in the personal form, and then he had worship Krishna in three other forms: as the impersonal Brahman, as the Paramatma, and as time. So here he talks about these three forms, that those who know you as the Supreme Brahman and the Super Soul, and Lord Rudra is essentially annihilation, is time, because Lord Shiva as Rudra is destroying. He is a Lord Rudra who ultimately annihilates them. They become, for them, you are the fearless destination. So, so Lord Shiva is saying, for those who are wise in this way, you are the goal. For those who are fools, they have other goals. Now, one may question that time destroys even the devotees. Devotees also die. They also grow old. Their body becomes weak. All these are the effects of time. So Lord Shiva makes the distinction over here. He says that the ignorant jivas are destroyed not by time, but by the fear of time. The devotees have no fear of time. They are both subject to the annihilation by time. But the devotees are never destroyed and the non-devotees are always destroyed because of fear. And again, this is a topic that can be discussed for long, but the summation is that those who do not understand the immortality that they can achieve in the association of the Lord live in constant fear of imminent destruction. So they are destroyed before they are destroyed. Their whole existence is based on fear of destruction. So that is why they are always being destroyed by the fear of time. And because the devotees, they don't care. The body goes, another body comes, continue with the service of Krishna. The day of Brahma ends, another day comes, another opportunity to serve Krishna. The universe is destroyed, another universe is created, another opportunity to serve Krishna. So all the destruction is happening to them also. But they do not perceive it as fear. Srila Prabhupada makes a very interesting observation in this verse, that how strong is this fear of destruction? Prabhupada says this fear of destruction is so strong that even those who are agents of destruction fear this destruction. So Prabhupada says that the word Rudra Bhaya is significant in this verse because Rudra himself, Lord Shiva, is speaking of fear of Rudra. This indicates that there are many Rudras, 11 Rudras. And the Rudra, Lord Shiva, who was offering this prayer to the personality of Godhead, is different from the other Rudras, although he is as powerful as they are. The conclusion is that one Rudra is afraid of another because each and every one of them is engaged in the destruction of this cosmic manifestation. But for the devotee, everyone is afraid of Rudra, even Rudra himself. A devotee is never afraid of Rudra because he is always secure, being protected by the lotus feet of the Lord. Lord Krishna says, Kaunteya pratichani name bhakti pranamshri, that my devotees are never vanquished in any circumstance. It's a nice verse. So that was the last prayer of the Rudra Gita. After this, Lord Shiva will conclude with the Falshruti in 11 verses, which will take us to the end of the chapter. So verse 69, Idam japad bhadrambo vishuddha nripanandanaha Swadharmam anutishtanto bhagavatyarpata arpitashayah. My dear sons of the king, just execute your occupational duty as kings with a pure heart. Just chant this prayer, fixing your mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. That will bring you all good fortune, for the Lord will be very much pleased with you. So as I mentioned that in 11 verses, Lord Shiva concludes and gives the Falashruti, the advantages of chant. So in this, from verse 69, in the next 3 verses, Lord Shiva will recommend the Prachetas and us that one should study and contemplate this prayer. And by reciting this prayer, worship the Lord with full intelligence. So Lord Shiva is now instructing how best to chant these prayers. So he says to the Prachetas, Swadharmam anutishtantu, that you should recite these prayers while performing your prescribed duties. So Vishwanath Chakravartipad says that this indicates the Prachetas were Karma Mishra Bhaktas. So Prabhupada says the prayers offered by Lord Shiva are very authoritative and significant. Simply by offering praise to the Supreme Lord, one can become perfect, even though engaged in his occupational duty. So it's interesting how Prabhupada constructs the purport that by offering prayers, one can become perfect, even though engaged in his occupational duty. So the construction means that the engagement in the occupational duty is an obstacle to perfection. But the recitation of these prayers will overcome the obstacles. And philosophically, that is accurate. That those who engage in the Varnashram Dharma do so for material enjoyment. And that's what Lord Shiva is also recommending. But he's connecting it with or he's giving the protection of these prayers. That if you recite these prayers, even though you may be engaged in Karma, your heart will remain pure. So Srila Prabhupada gives 2 references to make the point that bhakti cannot be checked by other activities like karma, gyan, astang, etc. And he states that if one cannot recite the Rudra Gita every day as recommended by Lord Shiva, then one should chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day, and one will get the same effect. So in terms of the superiority of bhakti, Prabhupada quotes the Bhagavatam 1-6, where bhakti to Krishna is described as ahituki apratihata, that devotional service that cannot be checked by any material condition. And in the praise of Lord Brahma, Lord Brahma says that that those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, throw away the process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words, and mind offer all respects to descriptions of your personalities and activities, dedicating their lives to these narrations, which are vibrated by you personally and by your pure devotees, certainly conquer your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within the 3 worlds. The Prabhupada concludes that one may remain situated in his own place or in his occupational duty and still lend his ear to receive the message of the Lord from realized souls. The Krishna conscious movement is based on this principle, and we are opening centers all over the world to give everyone a chance to hear the message of Lord Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. Okay, I'll do one more verse and then after that I'll pause. Verse 70. Tam evatmanam atmastham sarvabhuteshu avasthitam pujatvam grantascha dhyayantaschaskratharim. Therefore, O sons of the king, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is situated in everyone's heart. He is also within your hearts. Therefore, chant the glories of the Lord and always meditate upon Him continuously. Now, previously, Lord Shiva had asked the Pachetas to chant this prayer while engaged in their occupational duties. So, generally, worship is associated with performing of yagyas or archana, deity worship, or residing in a holy place. So, when Lord Shiva said that you continue to worship Krishna while engaged in your occupational duties, then the question is, they might ask is, how can we chant these prayers while we are engaged in mundane activities like ruling the kingdom? Because the Prachetas were princes, and after Prachinabhari, they would inherit the rule of the kingdom. So their point is that in order for us to worship, we have to sit down in front of the deity and worship, or we have to go to a holy place, or we have to have a homa, a sacrifice. But you have already told us to be engaged in our occupational duties, which is subduing enemies and extracting taxes and doing justice. So how can we recite these prayers? So Lord Shiva gives the solution. He says that the Lord is situated in your heart, and the Lord is always accompanying you. So you don't have to sit in front of a deity or form a yajna. The Lord is purifying you by His constant presence. So you need to just turn to Him and recite your prayers, which means that they can recite all the time and they can recite anytime. Prabhupada says that the word Atmanam Atmastam Sarvabhuteshu Avasthitam are also significant. The personality of Godhead is the origin of all living entities. Because the living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, He is the father of all of them. One can search out the Supreme Lord very easily within one's heart, for He is situated in everyone's living, every living entity's heart. So earlier on, Lord Kapila made this point that Smaranam is the combination of Shravana Kirtan. Smaran on its own is difficult, but it automatically comes as a result of Shravan Kirtan. And elsewhere, Srila Prabhupada states that Smaranam is achieved through Shravanam and Archanam, through deity worship and hearing. So Prabhupada gives the example of Haridas Thakur, who chanted almost 24 hours a day. But then for those who are not at that stage, Prabhupada says they're recommended to chant at least 16 rounds a day. So sometimes devotees, they hesitate to commit to this number. And often they will say that we chant all the time. I've had this experience so many times. You ask people, can you chant one round? And they say, well, I'm chanting the Hare Krishna mantra all day, from morning to evening. Whenever I get time, I chant. And then, of course, the point is, if you're chanting all day, then chanting one round should be no problem. But they will not commit to one. Right? So so they may well be chanting all day. But the problem is that they're refusing to commit. And in any relationships, commitment is very important. In marriage, the marriage vows, there are implicit and explicit commitment in any relationship between a parent and a child, between a teacher and a student. Commitment is very important. So that's Prabhupada gives the example of the Goswamis. That the Goswamis were very, very advanced devotees. But then in his praise, Srinivas Acharya, he says Sankhya Purvaka Namagan Natvi Kalashvani Kratav. So Prabhupada said the word Sankhya Purvak means maintaining a numerical strength. So not only was Raghunath Das Goswami chanting the holy name of the Lord, but also offering obeisances in the same prolific number. And finally, Prabhupada comments on the importance of following and then giving instructions in the discipline succession. Prabhupada says, it is significant that Lord Shiva personally offered his praise to the personality of Godhead just as he was taught by his father, Lord Brahma. Similarly, he was also preaching to the process according to the Parampara system. One should not only practice the instructions given from the spiritual master, one should also distribute this knowledge to one's disciples. Okay, I'll pause here, see if you have any comments. Okay, if not, we'll end here. We should obviously end this chapter, and next discussion on Monday, and then after this is the Pracheta will actually disappear for 5 chapters, and then the instructions of the Prachina Bari with Narad Muni. So while the Prachetas are in the forest performing austerities, not in the forest, in the water performing austerities, Narad Muni goes to Maharaj Prachina Bari, and he talks about this allegorical tale in 5 chapters. And then in chapter 30, the Prachetas will reappear again. So now they have done their 10,000 years of austerity and what happens after that. So next class, we should start with our discussion on Prachina Bari. We'll finish the chapter, summarize it, and then move on to the next chapter. Okay, so we'll end here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. One announcement, a small thing actually. Starting this Friday, Guru Maharaj is coming and giving a Japa retreat. If anyone is interested to join in person or even a Zoom link, I'll send. It will be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay. Thank you.
This is the festival of the Holy Name?
No, Prabhu. It is in Central Jersey only. We have Japa retreat.
Okay.
Yearly, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितनाम पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंतकोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंद। हरे कृष्ण।